Come on, everyone, sit down and listen to the greatest debate in all of history. We'll give you everything that you've been missing. Introducing Nothing Specialty. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Nothing Specialty Podcast, where we dive into deep discussion and hard-hitting debate. My name is Chris, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Ben.
I like waffles.
Great. And we are also joined today by a special guest, one of our best friends, Wes.
If you want to call me special.
He's special in a rode a different bus than me to school kind of way.
I can never figure out who that Ed guy was, though.
We won't discriminate. All right, so what's been going on? We just had Christmas. How was you guys' Christmas?
And we'll start with the guest. How was your Christmas?
Pretty freaking fantastic.
Oh, that's good to hear.
I mean, like, I work, I don't know if I can actually say specifically where I work, but it's a warehouse, you know, where people buy a lot of online stuff, and...
That narrows it down.
Yeah, and
let's hear all your guesses in the comments section.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've been working 50 to 60 hour work weeks for the past month and a half, and I got finally got a 5-day weekend, and it's just glorious. But apart from that, I don't know if anyone here knows what it's called, a Raspberry Pi, but it's like a little tiny hand.
I've heard of that.
Yeah. It's like one of those little handheld computer thingies. It's really awesome. I actually got one of those, and so I'm excited to do stuff with that.
Cool. What operating system does it run? Is it like Linux, or is it some other kind of proprietary?
It's nothing proprietary. It's completely open source, but the main OS that people run on it's called Raspbian, which is a form of Linux. It is Linux, but I'm actually going to be running a specific OS. It's called Laka. It's designed for emulators and stuff. It kind of has the old PS3 layout with the yeah. I'm pretty excited. So
okay. So are you going to use that as an emulating machine, or what?
Yep. I even got a Retrobit Platinum 64 controller, which is pretty cool. It's USB, and the main stuff I want to emulate is Nintendo 64 and Dreamcast, which that controller is just
glorious.
Perfect for.
Yeah, if only the Dreamcast were perfect.
Yeah,
Wes, it's dead now. Let it die.
Believe it or not, it's still going strong with a lot of third-party people making games for it.
Third party.
Yeah, we kind of just rolled right over the Sega stuff in one of our previous discussions, because they just kind of didn't. Yeah.
Blast processing.
Sorry, everyone who thinks what I just said is heresy, but you're allowed to have wrong opinions.
Yeah.
I just think the Genesis didn't age as well as the Super Nintendo did.
Marketing, that's definitely a part of it.
I mean, even the games, for the time, they're definitely products of their time, whereas Nintendo stuff, it's a little bit more timeless.
Nostalgia goggles!
Yay!
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Chris? How was your Christmas?
Oh, it was pretty good. I got to spend it with some family. So my wife's family is where we're staying, and so we got to, have a lot of good Christmas with them. And then I went to my grandma's house because she's in the same city, so we were able to have fun there too. Saw some relatives I haven't seen in a while that came into town. So yeah, we got some cool stuff. I got sweats for the first time in years, maybe over a decade since I've owned sweats, but they are so comfy. I can't believe I just neglected to ever wear sweats until now again.
So, side note, I feel like what he just said combines perfectly with last week's topic where he said he wanted telekinesis just so he could be lazy. So if he did have that power, sweats would be his best friend. He
Yeah,
might be
probably.
Captain
I just
Sweatpants.
wear sweats all over, all the time.
No matter what, no matter how much I grow from not using my legs, they're still comfy. They just smell bad.
Oh, I'd change them out. Jeez. Give me a little bit of
I'm
credit.
talking about the sweats.
So how about you, Ben? What was your Christmas like?
I went over to my fiance's family's first. Had some fun there. Watched. I had never seen Christmas Vacation. I guess it's a classic movie, so that was fun. I actually enjoyed it. It's also definitely a product of its time, so it was very interesting because it's definitely like old school humor. And then went over to my parents' house, and that's where the real fun began. Me and my brothers all sat down and played Smash Bros together like old time's sake. And I told them I was going to take them to school, and then we played Smash Bros against each other, and I trolled them hard with Dr. Mario. And then I got to hear my brothers argue for about a half hour about whether or not Dr. Mario was subjectively or objectively worse than regular Mario. So I ruined Christmas for my family by playing Dr. Mario.
That seems like a weird debate, though. Like, I'd say he's objectively better than regular Mario because of his down B. Freaking Mario's down B sucks.
I mean, his down B is supposed to combo into, or it's either supposed to push things away that you don't want hitting you, because it can be used to push like thrown items away or something, or push people off the map. And it's easier to combo his down B with his side B, which is actually a way to like KO people at low health. You can do it with Dr. Mario as well, but it's harder to make happen because Dr. Mario's spin attack relies on your opponent's damage for knockback, whereas the down B for Dr. Mario will push you back regardless. But I actually Googled it, and my brother still disagreed with what I said, but because I was curious, he said Dr. Mario's stats were all the same as regular Mario's, except one of them, which was worse. So essentially, he said that's why he's objectively worse, because the stats were all just worse. Period. No end of discussion, or the same. So I Googled it, and it turns out Dr. Mario actually has more power and knockback, but is slower than regular Mario. That's the biggest difference. The down B is also part of the difference. Exactly. But Dr. Mario is still fast enough and agile enough to easily compensate for the speed difference. And I know this for a fact because I beat the shit out of 2 really fast characters on that map. 2 of them were even ranged characters, and I was whacking them around. So
because you had to deal playing with me growing up.
I know, right? Samus, what a little fucker. Ironically, I also play Samus, so but yeah, so yeah, that was the highlight of my Christmas, ruining Christmas by trolling with Dr. Mario hard. I had a weird flex moment where they asked me when I was going to start taking them to school because I was actually not doing. I was doing about as well as them, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll start using my shield button." At which point, my brother went from 3 lives to 0 lives, while I had 1 left.
Man, there you go. Jeez. Well, I got a fun game for my wife called Heave Ho. It was her idea, and so I got that for her. Have you heard of that?
No, it's just a funny name for a game to get your wife.
Oh, well, yeah. But no, it's this game where it's like a 4 up to 4 players, and you're this little head creature that has 2 arms. You control with the stick, which way your arms swing, and then your left and right triggers grab with your left and right hand, and so you're trying to maneuver around these levels.
Game.
No, it's for the Switch. The video game.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about now.
So yeah, it's really fun.
I have seen a few people play it.
a few. Yeah, I've seen
I mean-
quite a few on YouTube. Yeah, but yeah. So, what do you think about moving on to what?
Well, I was just gonna say this segues into our topic perfectly.
Yeah, let's move on to the topic.
So the topic is going to be, what is the best game ever,
Oh,
excluding sports.
No,
and
no one
video
here
games
is
are not
into
a sport. Hashtag esports are not a sport.
So esports are all good.
No, apparently not. But, you know, I'm like,
No, video games are game for the conversation. When I say no sports, I mean no like football or anything like that. Mostly because I'm pretty sure I'm the only guy who likes actual sports of the three of us.
probably. I mean,
And even
you
then,
wanna
if I
talk
had to choose-
martial arts
And
sports,
even to then, if I had to choose a like something, just a game to have fun and just chillax, I don't think I'd ever pick football. Like,
Well, but that's
it's-
not the thing. It's the best game ever.
Yeah, I know.
And so, how do you quantize best?
So we should start out also
makes
by
the
saying,
most money.
So,
In which case, football, crazy.
well, let's make a callback.
Or soccer.
Well, let's make a callback to an earlier thing then. It's your subjective opinion, not the objective opinion. Also, I'm pretty sure the video game market might actually make more money than football. In fact, I'm
That's
fairly certain
possible.
it probably does. I know video games are on par with the movie making industry when it comes to amount of money made. Like AAA
Yeah.
games
I
get,
just thought the
get
NFL
the
was,
amount
like,
of budget
even
that you
more
would
than that.
give a new Star Wars movie nowadays. So
Yeah.
that's not an insignificant amount of money.
Which is pretty crazy if you think about it, especially in the early days when it was all pixelated and stuff. Like now, you need that much money in order to make it look as good as people expect it to. But I wish it like things like Wind Waker, like the HD remake doesn't really look that much different than the one on the GameCube. It's just that the resolution is higher, so things look crisper. Like all the textures, most of the textures are solid colors because it's kind of a more cartoony style. So if things just looked better stylistically, they would age a lot better, and you wouldn't have this uncanny valley that they're chasing.
True.
But,
Well, that's why games like Wind Waker age well, because they never tried to make it that.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that we shouldn't be trying to push the limits of like how realistic we should get graphics to look. There's a place for both of them.
It's
Yeah.
important. It's important for them to find that middle ground.
It's just the expectation for every single game to be this glorious, exactly like real life looking masterpiece is just, it kind of hurts indie developers and
well, I don't.
stuff. But
Yeah.
this is talking about the current gaming sphere. And while it's possible that one of the games that came out just recently could be the best game ever, I think it would be disingenuous to exclude all of the past from that.
Yeah. So,
So even though there's nostalgia there, I think that shouldn't affect this conversation about what is the best. Because if we're going completely subjective with it, then really the best is kind of our favorite. Is that fair to say?
yeah, but so it's like it's your subjective opinion, but like use objective reasoning to like argue. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So like here's
So-
my example. One I could make an argument for would be Halo 1. And I know that sounds a bit funky, but hear me out. And this is like me making my objective argument for my subjective opinion. So Halo defined the shooter genre. It didn't invent it. I think we had a talk about video games, and it was like either Doom or Wolfenstein. I don't remember which one.
Doom,
Was it Doom first and then Wolfenstein?
Doom completely like it didn't like start the genre, but for a long time, shooters were known as Doom clones.
Okay, so like Doom kind of started the shooter genre up,
And
like
then-
it charged it up. Halo is the reason we have modern shooters today, and it also made an old
Yeah, it did take a
format
lot from that.
better. That's the other thing. It changed it from walking through hallways, shooting pre-generated enemies, to an actual open battlefield where crouching in cover and like even added in like some its own futuristic concepts, and arguably has more story too as a result. So, but like a lot of the staples of shooters, it started aiming down your sights.
That
And-
was more of like a Call of Duty thing, though.
No, Halo beat up too. I'm pretty sure Halo was before Call of Duty, wasn't it?
I'm pretty sure a lot of like modern. It's hard to explain. So,
Halo really did revolutionize the shooter genre.
Yes, it's true. It definitely defined a genre.
And
There's
I
a
think
lot
Medal of Honor actually might have been before Halo, though. Now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure Medal of Honor was before Call of Duty.
Well, Call of Duty was still around the same time Medal of Honor was. It's just like the popular things like Modern Warfare. Like, I know Modern Warfare was one of the. Oh, Google. Okay, that's a great idea. I have my computer up. Might as well.
So, anyways, will we look up what came out first? Because now I'm just curious. What about you, Chris?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what would be one of your ideas?
Well, I feel like, so narrowing it down for genre, for what I think are the best games, I would have to exclude first-person shooters, I think, from my consideration, just because I don't enjoy them as much. Like, I don't find as much joy from them. But, and that's what a game is supposed to do, is, give you joy. It can do that by challenging you, or it can do that by just being super fun. Like, it doesn't have to be challenging to be fun. And it just kind of, I get a little stressed out with first-person shooters and even third-person shooters, just like when there's a lot of stuff going on at the same time. So I kind of lean more towards strategy-based games and like turn-based, which brings me to what I think the best genre of games is, which is RPGs. And I have more of an affinity toward JRPGs than just RPGs, because I played them earlier, I think, and I like a lot of their concepts and conceits. But I think, in general, they are my favorite RPGs in general.
But to answer the question,
So what came first, the chicken or the egg?
well, Medal of Honor came out in 1999, the first Medal of Honor, and the first Call of Duty came out in 2003.
When did Halo come out?
Oh yeah, I didn't even check that.
Oh,
Because
come on.
I feel like Halo definitely came out after the Medal of Honor game, but I could be wrong.
Did GoldenEye not have aim down sights?
2001.
Sorry?
Kind of. It had more of like a zoom function.
Yeah, it was definitely different.
But I really think the game that really revolutionized like the aiming, like the realistic aim down sights thing, really was the first Modern Warfare.
I don't know, I think Halo did a pretty good job with it. They just didn't give it on like all your guns. I think that's the big difference.
That's why I was saying that's the first Modern Warfare was what we typically think of in terms of like aiming down sights.
Yeah, fair enough for aiming down sights.
Because if you,
I feel like for a lot of the other stuff, Halo is definitely a pioneer in it.
But is that what we should be calling the best game? Something that did it first, or something that did it best?
Oh yeah, no, I was giving an example when I argued it. That was my main reason for bringing it up. But
I
I
love how we're
actually
not
do.
even,
But
like,
for the
talking about,
record,
like the best
the remastered Halo 1 Combat Evolved is amazing. It's fun. It still meets up to like so I guess the remastered version is just a polished up version of the old one graphics wise, but like gameplay wise it's still fluid. I think it's a solid game.
I still think the first Halo is like my favorite out of the entire series.
And I feel like
I know a lot of people like 2 and 3, but like I really feel like Halo 1, that's what Halo was, because in 2 and 3 they kind of made enemies a little bit more bullet spongy. Guns kind of just felt weaker.
yeah, they were trying to get rid of that whole because in Halo 1, like once you got like good at the game, it was easy to plow through certain enemies, regardless of what they were. And I feel like they tried to like fix that, thinking it was like a problem in Halo 2 and 3. but it was also neat to see in 2 and 3 the new enemy types. So like I have a like I'm not sure, and then certain guns worked better on different enemy types, so you kind of had to figure that out. Like I know in Halo 2, like plasma weapons were good against elites. They had shields, and plasma ate through their shields, and their health was like relatively low. But like brutes had just a shit ton of health. So the Needler was like just redonkulously good against them. So like, and that's actually like for me that was part of the game too, because when like in Halo 2 when you get transported to the Covenant's like flagship where the prophets are, you run into all these brutes and you're stuck with all the grunt weapons. And at first I was like, shit, how am I supposed to kill them with pistols? Because at that point I didn't really use Needlers. So I started picking up Needlers, and I realized how fucking great they were. They weren't as good against shielded enemies because you ate through your ammo for like less of a gain. But against the brutes who were just health tanks, just blew through them. So like, I feel like each one brought its own thing to the table. But like, I don't know, like, I can't think of a lot of bad things to say about Halo 1, too. I guess that's one of the reasons. Per the record, it's definitely not my favorite, what I consider to be the best game of all time. But
same here.
I definitely would add it to
well, then why are we arguing about it?
15. Oh, I was just. Yeah, that's actually a good point. Because we're having fun.
It's a good example of how to do it. But I want to get down to our actual picks, and so we can really hash out what is the best.
Okay. So my actual pick then would be StarCraft 2. And all of you who disagree with me are wrong. I think my reasoning for that would be a few things. So StarCraft 1 was a great strategy game, and it did the right thing a sequel is supposed to do, which it built on its predecessor. It didn't try to change the game. It didn't try to change how everything worked. It just built upon a pre-existing one. B, it's fun in single and multiplayer, and it's got plenty of replay value as a result. And in fact, it even for its single player campaign mode introduced the ideas of like really hard difficulties, which then have really achievements you can only earn through those hard difficulties. And they're not like dumb little ones like how many headshots can you get on a grunt while confetti is active. It's like take no damage with this character during this hour-long mission on the hardest difficulty.
Jeez.
And so like if you don't want to go for that, that's fine. But if you really wanted that portrait and you just really liked the game and you really wanted to like get that, you could do that. So it's got that replay value. I guess because it's real-time strategy, it's more stressful than like a JRPG's version of strategy, but I feel like that's part of it. Like when I first I'm talking about like Wings of Liberty when I give this example. I was playing Wings of Liberty online with people, and one of the ways I really screwed with people was I would play this various called the Protoss, and they like have a bunch of melee centric early game units, and I would play a bunch of zealots, and then there was like a later game unit that was also melee centric. It was called the Dark Templars.
Yeah,
and I would splash in like 3 to 4 Dark Templars in a group of like 10 zealots, and my reason for that was they're permanently cloaked, and normally you can kind of like the cloaked units can't be attacked by your opponent's units unless they have a detector. However, your opponent can kind of see their outline as kind of a blur walking around the battlefield. But if you mixed them in with zealots and only a handful of them, I noticed that a lot of players wouldn't recognize that you were running them. And suddenly they'd wonder why your ground infantry, and they had like obscenely good melee damage. So like suddenly my opponent was like, why are my tanks dying to normal ground units?
Yeah.
And by the time they realized what was going on, I'd often already have like kind of plowed through their front line. So it's like, it's kind of that in the moment thing that lets you create strategies like that. You can't get that in a JRPG. You can't outsmart Sephiroth by going, I'm going to hide this one cloaked unit in with these non-cloaked units because you'll never notice that. But I can do that in a strategy game. And
that's also
I don't feel like
PvP.
I feel like when you can follow, even in non-PvP there's strategies, and you can create your own. Like I remember there was a strategy guide on how you're supposed to complete one of the missions, and I could never make it work on the hardest difficulty. So eventually I just tried my own strategy, and it worked flawlessly. So like even against a computer, there's ways to do it that fluctuate based on the person and your strategy. So like and some of the and there's even a way to set the computers to a difficulty that's called like hard cheat. And it's essentially making the cure so hard it might as well be cheating.
Well, doesn't it also give them like extra resources?
It gives them obscene advantages. It's pretty much pushed to the point where it's like really, it's just hardcore mode essentially. But I would also say like I know this is going to probably sound mean to all of those people who like JRPGs, and for the record, I like games like Pokemon, so they're a fun game to play in certain moments. But I have a hard time feeling accomplishment in a game where I can just grind the shit out of it, and like I kind of know what my opponent's going to do all the time. So like at least in StarCraft 2, the computer will actually change up its strategy to fight me. Or a person.
The reason for that
in JRPGs
is
Sephiroth just nukes me.
See, the reason for that is that the combat is not the entire game. For StarCraft 2, the combat is basically the whole game, unless you're doing the single player like campaign, and then there's some story. But like the main part of it is the gameplay, the combat, the strategy of making your army and going and fighting. In a JRPG, there's a lot of exploring and traveling as well. So like the combat is just something that happens in between in order to like have your characters grow in strength and be awesome, so that when you take on a boss that is more difficult, and by the way, you can grind and make it so that it's really easy, but if you know that it's not going to be fun for you if you do that, then intentionally skip some areas and go straight on through so that it's harder to do it. So you basically get to choose your difficulty in a JRPG. And so the combat gets more difficult if you jump ahead, or you can grind and find all the treasures and make sure that you're leveled enough to breeze right through it if you just like the story. So it's a lot of like a customizable experience, even when there's no like difficulty levels to select.
See, I could agree with you on the story aspect if it wasn't for the fact that StarCraft's story is like really in-depth, long, and awesome. And I think that's the part where you lose me. Because, I mean, definitely I think some of Final Fantasy stories are technically longer than StarCraft 2's, but I can also remember and follow StarCraft 2's story without going, what? Like, I'm sorry, like, the nuances and in-depth of any Final Fantasy game I can think of is just like kind of redonkulous and weird. Like, but like I
think more than the story though, it's the characters that you fall in love with in your team. Like you get to pick your team by the end of it, and you have your people that you're like cherishing and building up. So there's a lot of connecting with those characters. And a lot of like it makes it when you finally kill the last big boss, it means that like you killed it, not just your people. And so like in StarCraft 2, you're not even playing as the characters that are in the story. You're some weird godlike being that's controlling everyone.
In StarCraft, you're playing as a commander. You're commanding the units.
No,
and you're commanding all the characters.
So in StarCraft 2 and StarCraft 1's campaign, through a good especially StarCraft 2, in a good portion of the levels, you have a character with you who is a named character, and they are with you as part of the journey. So but
you're controlling everyone, including them, and it's a whole army. Okay, it's a lot less personal.
I mean, I still felt like it was.
So
personal.
I find the story in a Final Fantasy to be a lot more personal and a lot more meaningful than any of the story that I've played through.
I think the difference is while you were like gaining levels and new abilities while working with your character, I was simply directing other units with that same character. The difference is you're leveling up in a JRPG, and I'm building to a new tier of build so I can have specific units to fight my enemy. But both of us followed our characters through the whole thing. Like, to make the argument that you got to be more personal with yours, again, in normal RTSs, I'd probably agree with you. Age of Empires doesn't really happen. StarCraft has that. You go through it all. And you even have choices in StarCraft 2 that affect your game. And they affect the story. So you even have the ability for choice, which is, again, something you don't usually get in RTS, which is why for most RTSs, I don't think I could make the argument I'm making now, which just makes it that much better.
So I'm willing to concede that story-wise, I'd say they're about on par with choices and with being connected to the characters. But the reason I would prefer then the JRPGs over StarCraft 2 would be that, you know, the story all equal, the abilities and the strategy in the combat, as well as the exploring all of the areas and going through these dungeons, as well as like going from town to town, like on this journey. It just seems more epic, and so that's why I would like that. It's the whole framing of it, not just the story.
You feel like you're a small group against a big world, whereas with something like an RTS, it's like you're commanding a large army against another commander with a large army. So it's more wide. There's more of like a wide scale kind of thing going on.
So who in this group chat has actually played StarCraft 2?
I have. Thanks, Ben.
You have? Okay.
I haven't played the entire story, but I've started it.
So you know for a fact that you are part of a small group. While you are commanding some fubs against this larger universe, you are part of a small group, and you do get to grow with them. And you can explore the ship and learn more about people and even be a part of it all. There's even a TV after each
I'm
mission,
saying that's equal.
And each conversation, there's even like a TV that has like the news of everything going on and your effects in it. Like, to say that you don't get to have that feeling of you're a small group affecting the world is, like, quite frankly, not true. Like,
those are also Wes's words, not mine. I'm saying that that's equal between the JRPGs and StarCraft 2. But to be more fair, I should select one JRPG to argue instead of an entire genre, because an entire genre against one game is not like you can't bring up specifics about the game to combat my specifics about your game. So to be fair with the comparison, for my pick of the best game ever, I would go with Final Fantasy VI. That is, it's for the SNES. That game is peak Final Fantasy, and the story and the characters are amazing. Some of your decisions could, in fact, kill some of the characters that you had on your team to where they will not come back if you do it wrong. You know, like, there's real consequences for a lot of those story elements, and you know, halfway through, like, the main bad guy wins, and you're in a post-apocalyptic world, having to find all your people again and regroup in order to go back and take him down. And so it's just the whole scale of it and everything is just fantastic about that story. But even more than that, the systems of leveling up your guys is great. You have these, like, I can't remember what they called them in these, but the summons, you know, you attach them to a person and they teach that person magic. And so, you know, grinding through all that magic to get everyone the spells that they need, you know, if you were trying to get everyone every spell, like, you'd be at it for too long. So just going along with the story, so you're not stopping to grind, like, you need to really pick and choose where you put each of the summons so that they can be teaching the right spells to everyone, so that you're not left without a healer, you know, all of a sudden. If the story dictates that your party splits in half, you'll have enough people in both that can do enough things. And then each of them have their own stats and their own weapons that they can and can't wield. And there's a lot to customize there. And so you can have them in the front row with dual wielding swords, or you can have them in the back row with a Morning Star that can reach, you know, through, because they're more focused on the magic. You know, it just depends on how you want to build your people. And each of them have their own special ability that you get more, like, levels for. Like, so, you know, one of them you put in a combo and they do specific different attacks. One, like, you hold for longer and then it'll do like 10 different attacks depending on, you know, what you go to. And the others are just like, you get more summons as you go, or you get more creatures that you can act like as you go. And so it's just like each of these abilities is getting better and better as you go, and it's really cool. And I think that is the best Final Fantasy by far. Final Fantasy VII is a close second, and that's probably what my favorite game would be. But to differentiate the best game is that, like, I think the story in Final Fantasy VI is objectively better than the story in Final Fantasy VII. The characters are better, and there's more consequence to your actions that could be different, depending on how you play it. So I think it beats out 7, although 7 is still my favorite because that's the first one that I played, and it holds a special place in my heart. So, but that is my reasoning for picking Final Fantasy VI, and I do think that it is better than StarCraft 2.
Okay. So I think the ultimate difference in our ways of looking at it is story. I don't think it's on par, but I don't know if both of you have played through all 3 StarCraft 2s.
I have not played through the story of all 3, so I don't have the personal experience to say that the story is
hard time
better or worse.
Attention.
But
so I guess on story it just might come down to our preference of story, because favorite story is very changeable, but they both have good stories. So I say the biggest key difference comes down to gameplay, and I like being in the moment with my games. I guess that comes down to like the fact that I'm also a lot more of a like go for it kind of guy. I don't mind planning. In fact, I'm all for planning, but I think there's something to be said with being able to handle things in the moment. I enjoy fixing problems in the moment, and you want to build the perfect journey, and I want to make the perfect journey.
Yeah, but also, Final Fantasy VI is active battles, and so you can't just sit there in menus forever. The guy's gonna keep attacking you. Your character's gonna keep, their bar is gonna fill, and they're gonna be ready to attack. And you need to make quick snap decisions, or else you're gonna be annihilated. You need to make sure you tell.
What do you consider quick snap decisions?
Within the
time
what is
limit. The length of time before a real problem happens?
Well, there's this one experience. So this was not when I was playing it like on its own console, like through. I was playing it on my phone. Just whenever I had a chance, because I just really like it. And so I was using save states because, of course, if I had to put it down and pick it back up and put it down and pick it back up, I've got to just pause in the middle of stuff. And I had run into a battle with this dragon that I should not have been in that early. I should have come back later when I had a lot more items and experience and spells to deal with it better. But I ran into it, and I had saved over my save state inside the battle. So I was stuck in this battle, and I hadn't made a real save on the thing for forever because I was just using the save states. So it was like I was really screwed if I died. I would not be able to reload anywhere near where I was. So I was forced into this, and so it took me probably 20, maybe 30 tries of dying and reloading before I finally figured out the perfect way to act to make it so that I didn't die, and I knew when his attacks were coming, and I planned it out and got it to where I finally was able to beat him. And it felt so cool. And while that's not an experience that they intended to be there, because the save states is obviously a phone emulating thing, it still counts as good points for me toward the game because it's with that game, and that just shows how in depth and strategic the combat really is, and how you have to really be exact with your decisions and fast, and really be able to
I wanted
understand
an exact
the
time before you're I wanted an exact time frame. How many seconds do you have before you're just kind of screwed for not making a decision?
Probably. So let's say the bad guy has an area attack that hits all 4 of your guys and takes them below half of their full health. You need to then, in the next maybe 15, 20 seconds, have someone that has a mass heal spell come up available to use it, cue it, and then have them actually execute it before that 15 or 20 seconds is up when he uses that attack again. Or he might use a different attack. You never know. He might just do a big one on one guy, and so then you're like, oh, well, I wasted that big spell. I could have just used it on here, and then, but you never know what's going to happen, and so you have to be prepared for the worst. So you have to have everyone at least above half for their health, because then that attack will take them down to almost dead, and then you can do a big heal on everyone to get them back up. So it's kind of like resource managing, and you don't want to run out of MP, so you don't want to overuse your healing spells, and so it's just there's a lot of resource management that goes into that as well. So
I think the reason I don't think they're on the same level, and again, I guess this comes down to both of us playing the games differently and enjoying different genres, is in 15 to 20 seconds, the battle would have been over for a StarCraft battle.
Oh, it takes 2
And
minutes for you
chance-
guys to go all the way across the field.
No,
Well,
like
for the
once
actual,
the
like,
actual
skirmish.
skirmish is happening.
Like,
In 15 to 20 seconds is a long skirmish. 20 seconds is two people really kiting each other and really pulling some shit out of their ass.
In the
That
field.
Could
that
be as
is
short
that
as
is
5, but it just depends on.
That's my point
guy. I've
is-
never
that's my-
sat and counted when I'm in the battle. It's
Okay.
just frantically switching and going up, down, left, right, and A and B and A again and all that stuff to.
and I feel like
select
the
right
amount of
move and
decisions
use it.
also is different. Like that's one of the reasons it's fun is because in a StarCraft 2 fight, it's not, oh, I need to make sure I select the right heal and this and that. A battle could come down to someone running a bunch of Zerglings past you, you deciding to chase them, but then they flank you from behind with like some roaches. Or vice versa. You choose not to chase the Zerglings, and then I decide to transform them to Banelings directly behind you, and then suddenly you have exploding death balls of goo killing your whole army. So it's like it's one of those things where it's like I in a 5-second period have 8 different strategic decisions, and my opponent has to outthink me in that regard. And positioning and all that stuff matter in a different way. So I think as far as a strategy level goes, one has the other beat outright. Also, I don't get to try 30 times to succeed. Once I lose that
Well,
battle,
that was a very unique circumstance.
I understand,
there,
but even in
yeah.
a normal JRPG, there is no like my learning experience is in the moment, and once I lose, I lose. I might get to face that person again, depending on who they are.
In the PvE game, though, you can try the same
True,
level
against
again
the
and again and
PvE
again
game.
until you get that perfect. You know, you can try 30 times. There was a save point right
guess you
before
can.
him, so if I really felt like it, I could have saved, and then it just would have taken a little more time. I could have run at him and at him and at him until I beat him, just like the save state one. I was just forced into
Yeah.
that scenario because of the save state thing.
Gotcha. So I guess like I just feel like combat is a lot more like it's more demanding in one than the other, and there's a lot more factors. Like I said with the kiting thing, that's like a really simple but like important thing for a lot of armies. And like for you, it's like what combo do I use in this specific moment?
I would argue that it's not more enjoyable.
And I think that's what I was. Yeah.
So it might be more complex and more in depth, but it's not more enjoyable, making it less good to me. So that's why it comes down to subjective.
Yeah, that's why I was saying, like, for one, it's a real in the moment, in your face, enjoying that rush of I have to beat this now. There's versus I want to plan out, I want to figure out this combo and this and that. Like, because I think like the real enjoy. Well, I really think this campaign is freaking amazing in StarCraft 2. At the end of the day, like the heart of it, I do think is playing against people, and in that scenario, it really becomes a thinking game. And obviously, there's meta things to do and all of that.
Yeah, see, I never liked that amount of pressure and
I think that's the ultimate difference. Is I enjoy pressure.
just crazy stuff. It's like if you don't scout perfectly early on and make sure you know exactly what he's building, you could just be completely demolished. Your mineral line by what are the flying lisks from Zerg that you just didn't
No, I
see
get
coming.
you. Mutalisks, yeah.
I think the best way I
something
can
like that.
explain the difference is it's like a D&D campaign versus a Warhammer game. They're both tabletop strategy games, but with RPG elements and stuff, but one is a lot more focused on like the direct control of individual characters, whereas Warhammer, it's a little bit more like squad and army based, if that makes sense.
I can agree with that.
There's a lot more factors to take into account, and because of that, a lot more can happen / go wrong / go right.
And I like D&D way better than Warhammer, so that's probably why.
I enjoy both.
But Wes, what would your pick be to discredit both of our arguments for our best games?
Well, unfortunately, my argument would only probably strengthen yours, and because if I had to choose my absolute favorite game, it would probably come down to a tie between the 2 Nintendo 64 Zelda games.
Wait. Can I guess one of them?
There's only 2.
There's only 2.
I didn't know that, but I guess Ocarina of Time is one of them.
Of course. Ocarina of Time and
Uh-huh.
Majora's Mask, and the one reason is it's game comfort food. It's the equivalent of like comfort food for games. I can just it doesn't matter what's going on in my life, if I just need something just to sit down and clear my head, I can just pop that in and just
All right, but which one is a McDouble and which one's a double quarter pounder?
I would say the Majora's Mask is a double quarter pounder.
I agree with that answer.
Because Ocarina of Time, it's definitely a lot more simple, straightforward, but it's still totally excellent. But the Majora's Mask, it just has such a deeper just world and lore, and just I love it. I have yet to play a game that feels so alive than Majora's Mask.
Which is ironic because of all the death.
Right? It juxtaposes everything. Oh my gosh, it's so good. But I can definitely. I actually watched the Angry Video Game Nerd. He actually did a video on Majora's Mask, and he says he loves the world, he loves the stories in the world, he loves everything but the gameplay itself. And well, I can't argue with that. I mean, it's certainly dated, and there are just some frustrating things about it, but at the end of the day, it's just comfort food for me, and I can just.
So for you, the best video game ever would be something that will forever be a good game you can sit down with and enjoy.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
It's a game I can continue to go back to.
30 years from now, you will play it.
Exactly.
I feel like that's a fair line of logic.
I mean...
Yeah, I feel like the same is true for me and Final Fantasy VI, and I feel like the same is true for Ben and StarCraft 2.
There's just
he can still sit there and play through the campaign again if he wants, unlock some of those harder ones, or just do PvP.
I didn't even bring up the cartoony version of StarCraft 1 that now exists. It's the best.
Yeah.
The Zerglings sound adorable while they murder people.
Well, we all know how Ben feels about Ocarina of Time, and I'm sure Majora's Mask kind of falls into the same kind of category. But I personally really like that too. Those are probably my favorite.
I don't think he actually played Majora's Mask.
I finally have, and I have to say, its combat is better than Ocarina of Time's.
Out of curiosity, did you play the 64 version or the DS version?
I played the DS version.
Okay.
But I feel like its combat is better. I don't have an N64, so that's why that. But
good point.
But I also feel like there's just more, I feel like I just feel like there's more going on, and I also and this is my big thing, and this was my complaint for Ocarina of Time. I felt like half of the game was literally just wasting my time. It was just there to artificially make the game longer, and to me that's just, again, and I've said this before, when I play games, I don't play a lot of video games. That's why I finished the Mass Effect series so many years after it had already been out, because I don't get to play a lot of video games, and I never have, or in the past it wasn't that I couldn't, but that wasn't my thing. I was in school and everything, and now that I'm an adult, I still have select time to do it. So when you put a game in front of me that says half of your time spent on this game will just be scrolling through stuff and making you go do redonkulous, dumb little fetch quests, and making me go before I can pass a gate, I have to go talk to a specific person. To me, that is a waste of my time. Let me just go through the gate, and if there's a consequence, neat. I'll actually enjoy it better because now I know there's a consequence. But telling me go find this specific person, oh yeah, I don't like having to use Google to play my game.
Mm-hmm.
If I feel like I need a walkthrough to make the game shorter, that is a problem, or to make it less tedious. And because I don't have prior knowledge of Ocarina of Time, I felt like I needed just to get the rip off the Band-Aid and finally get to my new segment. Who do I need to talk to this time before I can move on?
Mm-hmm.
And I get that I could probably figure that out by listening to text speech, but that's part of telling me, not showing me. And we criticize movies and stories to no end for that exact thing. I don't think a video game should be immune to that. But I don't feel like Majora's Mask really did that to me. I felt like Majora's Mask just let me be. And that's my big thing. It let me just play the game. And if you just let me play your game, I'm going to be a lot happier than if you hold my hand or if you waste my time.
Yeah, I
And,
think I liked Majora's Mask
they-
too for that reason better than Ocarina of Time.
They did make some changes, a lot of changes to the DS version, and like it, for some people, it made it more approachable. But for me, like it's like the Star Wars Special Edition. Some of the stuff just doesn't make it that it actually takes away from the experience.
But I don't have that experience to go off of,
Exactly.
so I will never know how
Uh,
that feels. In fact, I would probably hate it more because it no longer, it's now taking away from like the fact that I liked it more approachable.
The only thing that I can think
Well, I
of was
mean,
the big like sand worms where you put on the giant's mask. Like that fight's very different. But what are some other differences?
Let's see. The first boss, can't remember, like Adalwa or something.
Odalwa, yeah.
In the classic, the original version, it was a lot more there. It was less video gamey, if I can explain that. You didn't have like an obvious weak spot. It actually felt like you were fighting this like swordsman and you're besting him. Whereas in the DS version, it kind of definitely had a bit more of a steps you need to do in order to beat him.
Oh yeah, and
I
he fell
knew-
down and his eyeball popped out. I forgot
Yeah.
about that.
And I know for the Water Temple one, they made some changes with how that one worked. Also, everyone seems pretty unanimous about this, but they hate the fact that as a Zora, you have to use magic in order to actually swim faster.
Oh yeah, that sucked.
That was annoying. And even like small things, for instance, especially like in the swamp, this was really noticeable. But you know how you have to, be a Deku to like hop across like the lily pads and stuff?
Yeah.
Well, in the 64 version, you could like use your like roll or like spin button to give you some extra momentum and get you like, farther with each jump. Whereas with the DS version, you're going to move like the same speed no matter how quickly you. Oh, and also they another change they made in the Water Temple is they actually showed you the specific places you could actually, create ice platforms with your ice arrows.
Oh, you can't just make him anywhere?
Yep. Like, a lot of this stuff, again, like, it made it more approachable and, like, easier for less experienced people to play it, but you definitely took away a lot of, like, the exploratory, a lot of, like, the... I don't know how to explain it. Like, it detracted from the experience for me, because it felt like I didn't... Like, I don't feel
little too
rewarded
hand-holdy?
for... Yeah, like, I don't feel rewarded for, like, knowing special tricks. I don't... Or, like, being better at the game. If that makes sense.
That's fair. I didn't know that I had lost out on that, which
Well-
is ironic because I like it more for the fact that I feel like it's not holding my hand as much.
Well, I mean, I can probably go dig it out. and give you an opportunity to play it.
Okay.
So...
So we're getting pretty far into.
But what did you think about the Bomber's Notebook, Ben? Did you ever do much with that?
in
That was an improvement over the 64 version. I will say that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was definitely gave you a lot more direction of where to go, like who to talk to.
Okay, so it took
But-
some of the guesswork out.
I don't mind waypoints and telling me where to go because I feel like that's
It's not outright telling you where to go.
Sorry,
It's
yeah,
giving
it's-
you better hints.
yeah. Sorry, I don't mind better hints. What I don't like is having to talk to everyone in town for mediocre gains, such as getting to a new spot.
Yeah,
Like,
so instead of having to talk to people to move forward and continue your progress, you're talking to people to figure out their schedule for the 3 days because there's only 3 days and you reset every
Yep.
so often. And so you find out what everyone's doing and then you can do favors for them and get masks. And those masks have
Yeah.
special abilities that unlock like
Yeah.
more ways to find heart pieces and stuff like that.
And sometimes they're useful, like outside of their specific quest, and sometimes not so much.
Like there's a bomb mask where you put it on and you run around and you can just explode and it hurts you, but it
Well,
explodes.
not if you have your shield up.
Oh, if you have your
put your
shield up,
shield
it's
up.
fine.
You put your shield
Oh.
up and you explode. It's great.
But yeah, but I feel like we've come to a good place. Like we've established why we think those are the best. I don't think there was any chance of us all agreeing on the same game.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah,
A lot
no.
of-
Actually, I can think of one game that might be all of our number twos.
All right.
Smash Bros. One of the versions, but Smash Bros.
I love Ultimate. Honestly, I think Ultimate is like the
Melee's would probably be my favorite for nostalgia reasons because I played it growing up with all my brothers and friends.
for me.
I
my tier list-
enjoy it, but Ultimate is just a better game, and it's the one I have access to right now, and I can play it with all my brothers and friends, even online. So I feel like Smash Bros. Would be a good second for all of us.
Yeah, and if I
Yeah.
were to like
I can agree. Smash Bros.
put
Ultimate.
Smash Bros in a tier list, Ultimate is by far my favorite. Like it's fast paced, it does everything right, with Melee right under it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if we should, bring what was it, Project M?
No, side projects shouldn't count.
Okay,
If it didn't come directly from them, we shouldn't count
Yeah,
it. 'Cause-
mod.
yeah, that mod that made the Brawl bearable to play.
Yeah, the one
But-
that ironically it made it more like Melee. That was its solution.
No,
Yeah.
if including that would be somewhere in number 3. But then it would be like the Wii one, original, and then Brawl is at the bottom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, I feel like
Brawl without Project M is definitely the worst one.
Yeah, easily. Like, I can understand wanting to make it less competitive, but like there are just some options that made the game just more aggravating to play.
Yeah.
Like, tripping.
Yeah.
Like if we could just I could probably bear that game so much more if it didn't include the tripping.
I feel like it made everyone a lot more tankier though, a lot harder to hit off the map. And in a game where that's kind of the goal, I feel like it sucked when you were like a heavy character who had a hard time getting a light character off the map. I feel like it did some other things
Mhm.
poorly too. Like it didn't feel as fast paced.
It was definitely slow. They slowed a lot of the characters down. The jumping was kind of floaty. They.
But anyways,
So I mean, as far as fighting games go, I don't it's definitely a party game, not really like a competitive fighting game, but it's definitely my favorite fighting game.
I think it could be competitive. Just because it's not supposed to end in 8 seconds with a combo doesn't mean it's not competitive.
Super combo.
Like, I feel like a lot of fighting, like your classic style fighting games like Mortal Kombat and stuff, are all about just blitzing your opponent a lot of times. And while there is some of that in like Smash Bros, like it has different levels of play. And even when you see competitive people play, does it look insane? Yes. Is it like just like a mashing of a different button combination to blitz your opponent? No, you're actually having to use your set moves in a set way to gain victory.
Well, it since it kind of goes for like the easy to master, easy to learn, difficult to master approach, and
Exactly.
I really like that. The moves are pretty straightforward, so it's more comes up to you of how to use them to the best of their ability, rather than making everything overly complicated. And this is me. I like Soul Calibur, but not necessarily as a competitive game.
Yeah. I think like the only thing I would disagree on most people on when it came to Smash Bros. Is I actually really disagree with people who like playing just Battlefield or Final Destination. And this is just the strategy person in me. I enjoy I don't want a Battlefield that like punishes you just for playing on it, but having a Battlefield that isn't just a flat plane, I feel like that's part of the fun of Smash Bros. Too, because that actually lets you as someone who like spars in real life and is taught like self-defense classes, in real life there's rocks behind you might trip on. Taking your environment into account matters. So to have a fighting game where my environment is not just a flat plane is fun. Knowing that I can run run underneath something to try and bait someone to coming to me, or even just do it to try and aggravate someone till I, finally get a lucky shot in because they're like, stop running away. It's a fighting game, not a chasing game. To me, that is part of the game. Like, at least it should be. Like, I enjoy that. So and that's something Smash Bros. Gives me that's like Soul Calibur doesn't, is a Battlefield that isn't just, this is a flat Octagon.
I'll
Fight.
even admit my favorite part of Soul Calibur is character creation. I like making the stupidest looking character I can, but I've made some pretty good ones.
Oh, jeez.
Like,
So everyone that's listening, leave in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube of which one you agree with, or if we're all stupid and you have your own that you think is the best game,
No, you're
video game,
stupid.
or
It's
regular
the
game.
internet.
We only talked about video
we're
games,
stupid
so
regardless.
but also if you're listening on a podcast, you can email nothingspecialtypodcast@gmail.com, and I will check that and we'll read those and respond to them. And that's a great way to engage with us. So let us know what you think about this discussion. Do you like StarCraft 2? Do you like Final Fantasy 6? The Legend of Zelda? I can think of names. Or do you like Smash Bros. Best? So just let us know. But as far as socials, this is going up on YouTube. It's going up on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever you can plug an RSS feed into. And it's got a Facebook page, go and like that, and it's got Twitter, where all of the episode releases will go on to. So just stay informed and subscribe and like and comment and all of that good stuff. So until next time,
Later.
goodbye.
Why?
We still like waffles.